So we try to identify what would be our priorities in trying to find these new partners. And the first one was, well, first we needed to find a way that would help us better understand blockchain. And when I mean us, it was not just the innovation team, but it was also other programs that were not working on this specific project, our operation staff, and trying to see also how we could reach out not only HQ colleagues, but more importantly, people in the field. The second priority we had was really trying to see how we could know these service providers better, how we could know these blockchain companies, these startups, and be better at evaluating them and evaluating the risk of working with them. And the third priority for us was to try to find a system that will help us specifically better understand blockchain technology in relation to our mandate, in relation to the purpose we are trying to serve, which was to help serve crisis-affected women and also help identify technology that was gender responsive. So the first step for us in trying to plan our procurement process was to reach out to other agencies. And I think it really is an excellent example that shows the incredible opportunity we have that working together and getting to know, getting the experience that others have. For us, it was our first blockchain project. Other agencies, innovation teams were much more advanced, and we had a lot of support first from UNOPS that had already identified 80 blockchain companies. And really help us understand who they were and how they had come across them. We also had a lot of support from UNICEF, who shared with us the criteria that they use to screen and select startups, and we didn't have anything like that, so it was really helpful for us and to help design our evaluation process. And we also had support, obviously, of OICT that became the co-host of the event that we ended up designing and really help us identify what would be the best procurement process. And for us, it was first to use the list of UNOPS and do an expression of interest to these companies. And we had 17 companies who responded and expressed an interest in working with us. From this company, we selected 7 that we thought had the best solution, and then we decided to organize a simulation event so that we could get to know them better and better understand what they're doing. And I'll pass the mic to Peter, who will tell you more about this simulation process and what we did.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So hopefully there's at least a couple of you in the group online and here who are able to attend the blockchain lab in person. But I'd just like to talk you through what it looked like, what our objectives were for that particular event. The first thing I think that's worth highlighting is that from the get-go for us UN Women, it was very clear that this is something that was going to be driven by partnerships, that we needed to draw on the comparative advantages of the entire UN system as we explored what we could do in this space. And this lab that we're going to look at was very much part of the procurement and selection process. It would otherwise have just been a closed room discussion of, looking at a couple of submissions. So I think what's exciting here is that we were able to transform that into this collaborative open space, which is also very much a learning experience for everybody involved. And this is set up as a space not just for UN Women to identify partners and look at solutions that UN Women was interested in, but also to provide a space for all the other partners that we were involved with and engaged with to learn about the space and to also find partners for themselves. Now, the lab itself So that was a little glimpse of what it looked like for those of you who weren't able to join. Now I'll just break down. It lasted for 4 days, and I'll just go through what each day looked like. We had 4 different segments that were part of the 4-day event. So day 1 opened with a 2-hour-long learning session that was led by UNOICT. And this was sort of modeled as a blockchain 101 for those of us who, for whom this was an entirely new topic. And we thought we'd provide the space before the entire lab kicked off so that at least a small segment of our participants would know what are they looking at, can they engage with it critically, understand this little better. So we, of course, had other UN colleagues, but we also ensured that there was space for our UN women colleagues from the field who would potentially be the ones who would have to implement this in the next stages if it went forward. That was in the morning. Later that day, we had a high-level inaugural event where we targeted permanent missions, the senior management at other UN agencies, heads of private sectors, to sort of come together and have a fairly close session with each of these companies that we'd selected. So this was also something that was going to be in their radar as we went through. On day 2, we had a public session. So this was open to the public. We divided the day into 3 different segments, which were all identical. That was just a way of managing the crowds. But we had about 200 people come in and out throughout the day. And the way it was set up was that you could walk around, as you saw in that video, test each of the 7 solutions with the companies. And that was managed in smaller crowds, so you really had the space to engage with and, have a little back and forth with each of these companies after you tested their solutions. And what was also cool was that we gave the participants an opportunity to give us feedback. So we had these little cards where they could rate. This was at more or less at a superficial level, but it was also interesting for us to see what were the impressions that the participants were leaving with, what appeared the most exciting to them, what were the burning questions that they had. So it was very helpful and interesting for us and the companies to see what that feedback was. And on days 3 and 4, it was a closed session. So that was just with our evaluation panel and each of the 7 companies that were invited. So this was, we'd have a session, we'd have an hour with each company, and we dove deep, essentially, into their solution there. Now, I'll spend a little bit more time talking about what that looked like. So this is the selection process that we had to develop, because as Ellen mentioned earlier, what the standard process we felt wasn't thorough enough or wasn't fit for purpose when it came to technology as new and nascent and evolving as blockchain. So these were the 4 areas that we thought were important for us to look at, and again, very much driven by partnerships here. We were able to draw on the expertise of each of our partners here. So programmatic fit, this is more helpful. So this sort of breaks down what the kinds of things that we're looking at under each group. So program fit was, we looked at, is the solution that's going to help us advance gender equality and help us serve better the crisis-affected women that are our beneficiaries. The business model was our second set of criteria. You can see the breakdown there. We also had a separate grouping on legal issues because we thought this is such a new technology, has a lot of potential, but also risks involved. How can we understand what this looks like in legal terms? What are we talking about data protection here? So these are all new. There were a lot more questions, honestly, that arose out of the deep dive than clear-cut answers. And then lastly, technology. So just to move back and to again highlight, we had our field colleagues from within UN Women, country representatives looking at the program fit. For the business model, we had our own ICT colleagues and innovation colleagues, as well as UNOPS evaluating that. We had a UN Women legal in-house legal capacity, and we also had UNICEF, WFP, and UNOICT assessing and helping us evaluate the technological strength of each of these solutions. So that was sort of step 3 of this selection process. And after that, what we did was we invited 4 of the 7 companies to submit an RFQ, that's a request for quotations. And there we did, again, it was a close evaluation there, but we looked at a similar set of criteria. I won't spend too much time on that. And the result was we selected a company that we went ahead and did a field testing in Kenya just 2 months ago. But what I think was also exciting was that throughout this process, one of the partners that we had worked with very closely, WFP, we were also able to have another exciting partnership come out of that. So we have an interagency pilot that was launched in Jordan, and that was with WFP. So we have sort of 2 outcomes that came out, one more directly than the other, out of this process, and we'll be scaling up the second pilot there. And back to Hélène.
Thank you. So this is our last slide, and we try to see if we should recommend you to do this process, should you wish to. And obviously, it's a lot more work than a regular procurement process, but overall, we felt that it was really worth it, and that we ticked a lot of the boxes that we had set for ourselves. I continue? Okay. So first, it was a great team effort. First, as we mentioned internally, we had a representative from the field coming. We were able to engage with a lot of people inside UN Women. So that was very positive because it was, otherwise it would have just been a project from the humanitarian team. And by doing that, we were able to reach a much larger crowd internally, and also to engage with new partnership with other UN agencies. So for